offering resources, advice, encouragement, inspiration. It was incredible. It was one of those Zoom meetings that was just like, I can't believe this person exists and that they're here as a hero. You're really a remarkable person. For those of you that do not know, Noelle Scaggs is a powerhouse vocalist and songwriter. She is the frontwoman for Fitz and the Tantrums, a world traveler and foodie, and ally. In the midst of a thriving career as a singer, songwriter, influencer, she created Diversify the Stage, which was created to foster more accessible pipelines to careers in touring for BIPOC, LGBTQ+, and marginalized gender identifying communities. Thank you so much, Noelle, for being here. It is a true honor. And also to all the guests, if you have any questions, throw them in the Q&A, and at the end, we'll make sure that we get to as many questions as possible. But to begin, Noelle, I would love to hear and tell our folks at Femme House your origin story. How did you become the powerful you? And then we'll just sort of chat after that.
Oh, first off, thank you so much for having me. That first Zoom call that we had, I was just like, I got friends, I got new friends. I'm so excited. Let's just go and change the world together. So I'm so grateful that you have me here. I really appreciate it. I'm such a fan of yours as well. So, yeah, my origin story, I mean, trial and error. That's like really that is it. Like, I didn't, I started singing super young. Like I, started kind of dabbling into songwriting at like age 10, really just like writing down other people's songs and learning how to sing them. And that was kind of how I like strengthened my muscle as a vocalist. I didn't have any proper training, I think, until like high school when, my mom could afford to give me, get me like vocal lessons and piano training and things like that. And she learned that I could sing in like junior high. I didn't even sing really around my family. I was like super shy about it. It was always me like singing in my bedroom, or when they were still at work, when I come home after school, I'd like sneak into my dad's like record collection, because he had just like, he was like a DJ in the 70s. Like
Cool.
late 60s and 70s, and he used to do all of the like disco parties, so he had all the promos, which, by the way, I just inherited his entire record collection.
No. How many
Yeah,
records is that?
yeah. I have no idea. There's like literally like 6 or 7 crates worth of just like gold. Like he literally has like promos that are unopened from this like original, like insane. Like I was literally like putting a story, because they're sitting in these crates in the garage, and I was like, are they damaged? They're all still in mint condition. Like
I thought that inheriting my parents'
Yeah.
Grateful Dead shirts was like a come up, but that is
It
crazy.
is a mad come up. Like he's like, yeah, if you want to take them. I was like, I'm gonna recreate all of these, and I'm gonna pick them up, and I'm gonna bring them to my apartment. I'm gonna put them, put a good chunk of them on digital, and then other ones I'm thinking like my friend Peanut Butter Wolf or whoever really.
Yeah. Oh my gosh.
Like,
Yes.
yeah, like his 10,000. I always think he probably owns all of these records anyway, but he wants to come check them out. So like, I was like, sure, absolutely, you can come by. Yeah, so I used to like kind of just dive into my my dad's record collection without him knowing, because I wasn't supposed to do that. And I, kind of, I guess, taught myself how to project and sing and stuff. I did like my first talent show in junior high. And it was like really not until like college that I tried to pursue anything, as like a career choice. I was taking popular songwriting in school. I wanted to be the next Diane Warren. Like that's what I was like building my craft for. Had no interest really in like being like an artist. Like, you know what I'm
Really?
saying? Like chasing that dream. Like it wasn't really like my like first thing. Like I was good at it and I loved performing, but it wasn't like I was trying to like go out there and dive into the business in that way. Like
Wow.
I was interested in like music publishing and, helping other people, like just educating folks, like that was always a passion of mine.
That's what you're
And
doing
then,
now. Yeah.
yeah, and then people, like in a popular songwriting class, you have to like write songs. So you're also recording them. So I was recording my songs and I'd be playing them in the class, and I'm like, You know, like, cause like one, just like even the like recording process, like it was like literally just like the cassette tape. It wasn't like I had like a studio or anything. I didn't even know people that had studios. I was like, what is all of this? I was like learning about it. So I used to record all my demos on tape. You come in and you play them for the whole class. And that's
Wow.
how people discovered I could sing, was literally that. So I, you know, and there was like a lot of hip hop artists in that course that I was taking, all locals from like Pasadena. And within that, it became kind of like this word of mouth thing that started happening. I started, you know, like a lot of folks would start hitting me up like, hey, you know, like, I heard you can sing. Like, would you be interested in coming down to like the studio and stuff? We're working on this like demo, you know, thing. And, you know, like the first time I did it, it was literally like, it was a song that I knew and I had grown up with, and it was like the way I feel about you, ooh, that, you know what I'm saying? Like we were like
Okay.
doing that, and I ended up recording it, and they ended up getting a meeting with at Virgin Records at the time. So that demo got them their like first,
No.
you know, like meeting with a major record label and the whole thing. They ended up staying independent, but they had all of these crazy opportunities from that demo. And then after that, it was just like word of mouth, word of mouth. So I did a lot of hip hop records, you know, on my starting
Oh.
point. I worked with Dilated Peoples very early on
Oh
their
my.
platform record. That was like the first time I worked with Evidence, was on that record, the song Nightlife. And then I did like a lot of Stones Throw projects. Like, I don't know how, I don't even remember how I got thrown. Oh, I think I got thrown into the mix of the Stones Throw camp through my first band that I was with. It was called The Rebirth. And it was like more that kind of like Earth, Wind and Fire, Rory Ayers period of like that George Duke lost period of the 70s kind of style, Minnie Riperton,
Cool.
lots of layered harmonies. And you know, it was around the era that like Jill Scott and Music Soul Child were like
Yep.
killing it, Erykah Badu, and you know what I'm saying? Like it was just like,
Wait, so you weren't necessarily like, I want to be an artist, yet you ended up in a band.
then
How
I ended
did
up in a band. So it came from me not saying no to all of these various hip hop projects and hanging out with hip hop artists. Like I was like hanging out with like this crew called the Justice League at the time, which is well, Papa Goose was his nickname. Now he goes by Benny Cassette. Benny Cassette, who is now like, I guess Kanye discovered him and he's like kind of killing it in production and stuff. Like it's just like this weird turn of events. Like all of my friends have like turned into like magnificent creatures. The Black Eyed Peas are massive, and you
wait,
know, I
and you
just
were just like hanging around with them as like young
hanging
people?
out with them. I was, as a young person, just like hanging out with these
Okay,
hip
so
hop artists,
you were
the people
touched
that I met
by
in college. Yeah,
no. So
yeah.
you were just destined to do what you're doing. This is crazy.
I think it.
But
Yeah, I
also
think
it sounds like you just said we're saying yes, and one thing led to the next thing, which like is
uh,
how okay.
I did things that were fun, you know, or that were a challenge. Like I literally would run to things that I was afraid of. You know, like I'm probably not gonna do much in this area, but I'm gonna like go for it and see what happens. Or like I've never written a hip hop chorus before. I'm gonna try that, and then it ended up being a single, or it stop dogs. It ended up being a single, or just you know like you know it just happened, you know. And like the more people, then I started kind of giving myself the opportunity of doing things as a solo artist. You know, I found a manager. I did more like performances and talent shows and like all the like, whatever things that you do. And you know, my
How did you
manager
find
at
a
the time,
manager?
she found me. She actually saw me performing at one of those talent shows. And back in the day, so like I didn't have a band. I was really, my dogs are freaking out in the background right now. They're like,
Actually,
stop
it's
it.
amazingly entertaining.
Yeah, so like they she saw me at this talent show, and back then like I was always really creative because I didn't have a band. I never really performed with like instrumentalists or anything like that. I was so used to the hip hop world. So I used to do these kind of mixtapes where I would take the instrumental tracks of hip hop songs and I would write my own songs to them. So this period, I think I used like a track from Black Moon, and I wrote this like kind of like hip hop soul song to it, and I performed it for this talent show or like this like performance. I ended up winning. It was weird. I just won money. Like it was like my first time like winning money. And my manager at the time was, you know, that she wasn't my manager then, but she was there. And she like, her husband was a producer named Ontario, and she was actually a entertainment attorney that was dabbling into like looking into management because she really wanted to help young people, and she was, you know, she was a good-hearted person, you know. So she introduced me to a bunch of like female songwriters.
Wait, it's so interesting. Just real quick, I want to touch on the fact that you would find instrumentals and then write on top of them. What's funny is that as a producer, I usually find acapellas and then write a track to them, and then I usually have to, the acapella is like a famous song that's out in the world, so then I have to go find a singer, you know. But like that's how I write the track, is to have that thing first. So that's cool that you did that in reverse. It makes total sense now. Yeah,
it was super fun. It's so crazy because I barely talk about that period of my career. Like it's like I've done so much that I forget about those little nuggets of like what got me, because I don't really talk about the like period of time where I was doing a lot, like I was doing solo stuff, like I was gigging in LA, you know. I had my first manager at 19, you know, like I was kind of like,
see, this is the stuff that's like, how did you get to where you are though, you know? And those are the building blocks for you.
But that was also, it was the word of mouth. A lot of the opportunities that I got came from the close-knit community of Los Angeles musicians and like hip hop artists and DJs, you know? So like,
and how do you think you broke into that? Through school?
I think it started, it absolutely started in that popular songwriting course. Like the folks that I met and who they were connected with. So how I met the Black Eyed Peas was through a guy named Mookie, who was the original member of At Band Clan. So he was like Mookie Mook. It was will.i.am, Mookie Mook, and Applejack. And at the time, Josh, you know, his real name is Joshua, but like he was like dating, and he wasn't really taking the music thing seriously, so he found like a sub, and it happened to be Taboo. Taboo used to hang out with them all the time, and they would do like dance ciphers and like all of this stuff. So like that's how they kind of like ended up being the Black Eyed Peas when Taboo joined, and they kept moving because Will was very driven, you know. So I met them through him. And I was, you know, we were hanging out all the time. We were like best friends. He had a group called Burning Star, but within his, you know, like his cipher of people that he knew, they were doing things, and I was always around. And then they would discover that I could sing, and they're like, well, you should work with us in the studio, or you should do this or whatever. So all of these things kind of just came into play, just really based upon, it was like word of mouth, me being in the right place at the right time, I guess.
But also putting yourself out there, you know, saying yes to things, saying yes and just showing up. Like you have to buy the lottery ticket to be able to win the lottery, you know? And it feels like you were doing that. Yeah.
That part, yeah.
So how did you end up in Fitz the Tantrums?
So I ended up in Fitz and the Tantrums with the same chain link. So my band, The Rebirth, we recorded our first record. There were 2 songs on the album that required saxophone. My bandmate at the time brought in this guy James King to do all of the arrangements for the brass sections and stuff, and also play flute on one of the songs. So I met him at the studio. James King and I later, after I'd left The Rebirth, I was with The Rebirth for like 8 years. We did everything all across the UK. Giles Peterson was a major fan of ours and champion of ours. King Brett had put our first single on his compilation out of Japan. Like, it was like this. It was like, okay, we're gonna run it in the UK and Europe. And I had like a great touring life from like my like early 20s into, you know, like 25 or something. I don't even remember, but like, then I ended up, you know, taking a break from that band. I was trying to decide if I was gonna move to San Francisco. I'd been out of the circuit of music for like a year, outside of just doing recordings for different artists that would call me up. But I was like working retail. I was like, I need to like figure my thing out. I'm gonna move to San Francisco and whatever, work with all these producers. In that process, I got a phone call from a guy named Dan Ubik, who's an incredible guitarist out of LA. He had a project called Connie Price and the Keystones. And around that year, Scion, remember the car Scion?
Yes.
Or like the brand Scion? Scion was doing these tours called the Scion Tours, where they would bring legacy hip hop artists and pair them with a live band to do these like US tours, and they sponsored everything. So I ended up getting asked to be the opening, like basically the backing band was Dan's band, and we did MOP. So it was like, we want you to do the opening set, and we're doing all of these like funk covers and like all this stuff, and then you're gonna do background for MOP. And I was like, Annie up, yes, let's go. Like I was like ready to go, because I was such a hip hop head. Like I was such a fan. I was like, oh my God, this is like the bucket list thing. So I did this tour with them, and James King happened to be the saxophonist for that band. So up until, I hadn't seen him up until that tour. He finds out that I left the Rebirth. Not kidding you, I think like maybe 2 months later, at the end of that tour, I get a random text from James like, hey, Noelle, like I may have a gig for you. I started working with my friend Fitz on this EP project. I know it's not your thing. Like, I know you left the Rebirth or whatever. And he said, it's a background gig. Like if you want to do it, it pays, whatever. I'll have him call you. Listen, you should check it out. It's a vibe. So he sends me sends Michael my number, Fitz my number. Fitz calls me. He seems really shy, and at that time, I was very much like, get to the point. Like I'm like,
at that time, or you mean always?
All the time, but specifically that time, because I was like, people were calling me, so I was just like, tell me what you need, and I'll tell you what I can do, and I was like ready to go, and I was like, he was like, it won't be until like December. And I was like, by this time I was like, I don't even know where I'm going to be in December, but I'll check everything out. And then I'll like, let you know if I can do it. He's like, yeah, if you can let me know soon, that'll be great. And because I want to set up a rehearsal and stuff. I was like, all right. So I listened to the project like 2 days later. I didn't even like listen to it right away. I listened to it like 2 days later. And this song on the EP called Darkest Street hooked me. I was like, okay, I see what he's doing here. I'll F's with him. Like I called, I was like, text him, yeah, sure, I'll do the gig. I decided not to go to San Francisco for a little while. I'll do the gig. And he was like, okay, cool.
At this time, had he released anything, or was this all just?
He hadn't even released anything yet.
Oh my God.
So it was basically just an EP, and he wanted to see how it sounded live to see if he should keep pursuing it. So we ended up doing a rehearsal. I walk into the rehearsal space, and it's like, mind you, I didn't know Michael. I didn't really even know James that well. Like I knew of James because of, that one tour. But like I was like the only female in like a sea of like 20 people. You know what I'm saying? Like a sea of men. Like it was all men on that tour.
Welcome to the industry.
I'd ever been on, I was the only female. If by chance Fanny Franklin was on the tour, it'd be two of us, but it was always men. Even on the independent label, even within our label and distribution that we created with the Rebirth, like it was me, right?
Yep.
And our artists, and our graphic artists, female, named Atusa, a Persian girl that was a badass, But that was it. Like it was always men. Anyway, long story short, oh my God, what was I talking about? Oh yeah, so we ended up doing the rehearsal, and like I walked in the room and I knew half the people in there. Like I had heard of them. Like they had been part of the Breakestra circuit, or they, had been recommended to me when I was looking for a drummer at the time. Like it was like this crazy thing. So it kind of it took the like kind of like, I don't know anybody out of it.
Yes.
And then we just started kind of like rocking the music. Like at that point I had known all of the songs really well, and it just felt really natural to sing them. And me and Fitz started singing together, and it was just like, boom, So
did you know right away in this first rehearsal, like this is going to be something?
I knew that it was special. Like it didn't feel forced. And that's what I think kept me in it. Like I was just having I was like, it's great playing with like musicians again, and like being around people that understand soul music, or like that are, seasoned in their craft. And, we'll just see where it goes. I mean, at that time I wasn't trying to like join the band, but if we had gigs and I was getting paid, I'd totally do it. And if I was still around, if I wasn't around, I would like recommend somebody to do it, which I did once, but it just ended up being like really special. We just had like a really great synergy. And then Fitz and I started writing together, and he was helping me. I was still focused on like trying to maybe navigate like doing solo stuff, but I
Yeah.
wasn't quite sure because I was writing so many different things at that time. And I really wanted to like expand my territory in songwriting. So I was like, whether or not I put this out, this is something from my discography, and I want to start having conversation with publishing companies about like taking me on as a writer. So
Yep.
that was what we worked on, and he really helped me kind of like craft the idea, to be fitting for sync, or to like, because that was his whole world, was like jingles and things like that. So we got into that pocket, and lo and behold, 13 years later, I've toured the world with them. We've got platinum records, number ones, like
I've seen you
incredible fan
so
base.
many times, and it is
It's crazy.
always remarkable. Like the
Thank you.
joy and the music and the energy, and it's wild to have that journey into this. It's so cool.
It's super fun. It's super fun. I mean, it's really interesting because like even thinking about today, now, like where I'm sitting today, it was so easy to take a lot of that for granted because I was in such a box. Like I was like, it was like our lives were like this. So you just imagine being in this like corridor, and then like you only have like these one, moments to come out of the box and look around and see what's happening, right? So we're like this all the time, and then we're back into the studio and I'm doing whatever I'm doing. This is the first time that I've actually really kind of looked at the painting of which my career has become. I allowed myself to
Wow.
like, also being off and COVID and like the whole thing, and not really performing as much, and taking really a break from like even creating,
Oh,
just allowing
wow. And
myself to
is this
have.
did the pandemic allow you to do that sort of? Is that was
Yeah,
did
I
that
think
push?
it kind of forced it because it was something that I thought about. I was like, dude, like it'd be nice to kind of like maybe take a little bit of a break after we're done with this record, and like, and see what else is out there. Like, all of my other passions that I have, the writing that I do, and just kind of
Yeah.
navigating the other creative itches that I've had, and things that kind of really give me purpose.
So this kind of feels like the next appropriate question. Why
Yeah.
did you create Diversify the Stage? And when did you start working on that?
I started on Diversify the Stage last year, recognizing that there seemed to have, like when, all of the things had gone down with the police brutality and the murders, and, all of the social justice causes and Black Lives Matter, and, record executives putting their fist in the air, and the black boxes and all this stuff. I, prior to then, I had really been thinking about my experience. So when I talked about like being the only woman often, it made me ponder even just the looking at the ethnic identifications of people within my direct team, my experiences on the road, and traveling, how little diversity I saw in those areas, and just wondering why. Like, I'm like, why is it like this? Is it like, but then also like, is it the norm, or is it just because I'm an alternative and that's just the way it is? Because it's more rock focused and we don't really attract. I was like I said, I see us in the audience. You know what I'm saying? Like, you know what I mean? But I'm not really seeing it in the background. And, it's very male dominated, very white male dominated. And I just wanted to kind of open up discussions, have
Yes.
discussions with like tour manager friends of mine, like, yo, how do you even go about finding people? Like who staffs our tours? Like I started like asking these like very, as an artist, you think that most of us artists know. We do not know.
Nope.
We know our tour manager, our production managers, or assistant tour managers if they exist, our direct team members, people that we talk to on a day to day. I couldn't tell you who's doing what on behind the scenes in the technical. I have no idea the understanding of their job. Outside of the front of house visuals, because I've always been a person that's been a visual person, so I always engage with the folks that are spotlighting or creating that visual production. So I know that, but it's all of the other folks that make that ship go.
Yep.
I didn't know anything about. So I started asking a lot of questions. I called up my friend Mark Oglesby, who is the tour manager for One Republic, because we had just done a tour with them. And I was like, yo, Mark, like, is this like a normal thing? Like, you guys are a bigger band than us, but like, and he was like, yeah, honestly, I hate to say it. And he's like me as a tour manager. I know that I could do better. And I'm going to work towards that, like really work towards that, like put in the effort and stuff. And he was like, but he's like, I got to be honest with you. He's like, I literally will go to the colleges and the high schools to tell people about what I do because they don't know. So there was like a lack of education, right? So unless you're in theater, unless you're taking programs that are really, involved in that spectrum of production and stuff, 9 times out of 10, you're like me. You have no idea what a tour manager does, really. Like,
or that it's an option or like a thing you can do.
or it's an
Totally.
option. Yeah, like it's like, how do you actually get into it? There's a mystery behind our concerts industry because it takes so many people to make it function and to make it move. And not even just on the road, but also within our agencies, when we're looking at the promoters who are booking us, the venue like all of the venues that we're involved in. There's so many things, and it is
Totally.
a multi-billion-dollar industry. We employ millions of people, not even just like 100,000 or so. We are global. It is massive, this side of the industry. So I wanted to have those conversations. I wanted to start help, like figuring out the obstacles and utilizing my platform to hopefully engage with other artists that may have had the same experience, talk about how we could shift the narrative a little bit. And in that process, I opened up Pandora's box because it's not as simple as just saying, we're going to hire people. You also have to be able to find them. We don't have a centralized industry-wide standard for finding staff for productions. It doesn't, like there's multiple databases. We can send out Excel sheets all day long. I was like, well, that's the first thing. Like, I'm a tech person.
You were talking about word of mouth earlier. Like, it's the most word of mouth industry I've ever. It's wild.
Yeah, it's wild, but I get it. You're on the road. You're in a tin can for months at a time with people that you have to get along with. Like, you cannot have toxic energy in your direct space. You have to have reliable folks. It has to be about the experience and it takes a particular kind of person to even be able to navigate the territory of touring. So I get it. People want to have people that they are relying upon. They don't have to worry, think about it. No one's going to get hurt, like all of these things. But within that, it closes the net of opportunity for folks, because if you don't know any Black people, or if you come from a community that is not diverse, it does, or it's the neighboring town, but you're hiring and recruiting from your local community, you're only going to get what you have around you or what you know about. So it's really about kind of creating an infrastructure where we can expand the net of opportunities for qualified people, and then also engaging with those folks that are trying to get their foot in the door and expanding that access for them, and being a mentor, being a person that is okay with going to schools or hopping on a virtual panel and talking about the career path that you have and how you got there, and things, areas of study and things to consider. If you are a drummer and you want to be on the front of, be on the stage and all of these things, and you're working towards building and developing your craft, there are opportunities for you within the production space to learn, to one, get you in front of a bunch of different like artists and stuff. Like, if you're really good at what you do, you could be a drum tech, you can be a guitar tech. There's literally like hands-on things, and those folks are like the rare niche breeds. And there are not a lot of women that are involved in those sectors. So it's like, to take on that technical role is a side hustle that you can make for money. It builds your network of opportunities with folks. It gets you that like sound, like you start understanding the gear that you're involved in. You can deal in the audio. Like, it just builds up your tool belt. It makes it so much easier for you to get into the room with folks that need people that, have that experience level. And once you find one of those are lifers. Those are for life.
It's true. Yep.
You know,
Family. So, what are some of the methods you found effective when galvanizing the larger music industry community around addressing issues of diversity? Like, what are the things that are working in Diversify the Stage?
it is literally pulling resources. It is literally, connecting with organizations like Femme, discovering what you are working towards, aligning the goals and looking at other, community engagement structures that actually have that focus, bringing them together and saying, how can we start informing the young people in our programs about what you're doing, what the agency is doing. The agency now becomes, a resource for these opportunities, and they're engaging with community engaged, people.
Yep, totally.
So that was a big part of it. It wasn't about what DTS is doing on its own. It's about the collaborative effort. Folks that have been doing this longer than me. This is my first time diving into creating an infrastructure where, one, I have to think about how I get funding for it, two, having staff, volunteers, what happens on the operational level. Like, I'm literally going back to business school, and I'm so reliant upon people that know how to do this work.
Well, thank goodness you are loud and strong and smart and resourceful, because that will get you all the places. This is remarkable.
Yeah. So it's been a lot of bringing people together, because I recognize that I feel like there's been circled conversations. There has never really been any plan put in place. Really, people are doing it, but it's so splintered. Yeah. That it's how much stronger would we be as a unified, community of people in this space to activate all of these different things that we know are going to bring change to the industry. We know are going to inspire people and hold people accountable for the way that they move in our industry.
Totally.
And it's also just kind of informing artists that it's important to look at your room. Yeah. And it's important to engage with the folks that are making your life 10 times easier every single day.
Yeah. Well, what's so cool too is to see, it seems like we're in a place right now in the world, hopefully, and smaller level, the industry, where people who are in positions of power do want to make the right decision. Unfortunately, it seems like sometimes maybe they're a little bit lazy and don't know how. And so just they give the job to somebody who looks like them, who's their friend, because it's such a relationship-based industry. But it does seem like people care, or at least they have to start caring, which I don't really care why. I just want to see the change. And it seems like organizations like yourself are and what Femme is trying to do, build actual resources, tangible bridges that can hopefully make that happen. And I see your work, and it's really remarkable what you've done in such a short amount of time.
Thank you. Yeah, I mean, it's really, trying to work together to create the best standard practice across the industry, because we don't really have that. It's our industry is the wild, wild west, and there are a lot of folks that have been trying to figure out how to implement just the simplest trainings, HR training, sexual harassment training, developing policies of their intolerance for intolerant messaging and racism, and what I'm saying, really, really addressing the issues with a laser focus. So my team and I for a while have been working towards developing something like this that we are going to start pushing into the industry, and getting folks like yourself on board with utilizing it, but a tool basically to kind of influence a more well thought and organized and unified manner of moving, whether or not you are in Pennsylvania to London or wherever it is. It's kind of a best standard practice across the board, whether we're looking at sustainability, whether we're looking at diversity, inclusion, and equity build, and all of the things, mental health even. These
Yep.
amazing
Amazing.
mental health and recovery services that are available for people on the road, and
Totally.
they're free access for us, you know?
Yep, absolutely. I have a very femhouse centered question, but
Yeah.
how many times have you been in the studio with a producer that was not a cis white male? I'm just curious, as a very successful singer songwriter.
Yeah. Yeah. And you know what? It's
Yeah.
crazy. It's crazy to say that. There's only been a couple times where it's been a producer that was a person of color, still male, still male. My one of my really really good friends, Leanna James McCollum, is an incredible songwriter, you know, and she and I do a lot of work together. But she even works with a ton of dudes. Like just even thinking on the like production level, you know.
Yeah.
And it's not
Yeah.
to say that like are, you know, we got badass like female, you know, identifying producers that are out there that, you
Yeah.
know, are killing it, but we're making music for ourselves, you know, and not necessarily collaborating, which is not helpful
Totally.
in the case of, you know, when we're trying to get together. And it's so funny. I have to give props to my friend Lexi Bibbo. She's a, you know, a songwriter manager. She just recently moved to Miami, but she had the idea along with a few like really top songwriters in the Latin pop, and you know, I don't know all the things there. I'm really bad at pop culture. It's nothing, you know, personal. I'm bad at pop culture. They put together like a female writing camp, and it was all the like top, you know, female, you know, songwriters that have been writing all of these hits that you're hearing coming out of Latin
Wow.
pop, you know, but
Wow.
most of the time they don't get as much shine as the male figures because it's very machismo. Like that is literally like how it is, but they are dominating. A lot of the words are written by these women, you know,
Amazing.
and on these songs and stuff. So they put together this like, you know, songwriting camp. I've had conversations with, you know, different folks at Atlantic and, you know, in the UK about doing things in Nashville and bringing more female songwriters together to
Have you
create.
connected with She Is the Music?
Yes, yes, I'm
Okay,
actually, yeah.
good, good.
So She Is the Music is one of our DTS community partners
Awesome.
in you know on the level. They were actually one of the first ones. It was Music Forward, Sound Girls, She Is the Music, and Women in Music.
Amazing. Well, we haven't even announced this yet, but we are partnering with them for a course we're launching in a few months called She Is the Producer, and they
I
have been
love it.
so supportive and this is like just coming together, the organizations that have the same ethos and care about the same thing. And like I really do see change happening, and I really respect that you're doing it on a full industry-wide level. Like I really see it happening. Obviously, like our niche is just one specific thing, but
Yeah.
it's really cool that you are yeah, you're changing the way we move. I really see that. I'm gonna start going into some of the questions that we're getting. Um, so Dion Smith is asking, were you involved in getting the female techs on your stage crew?
Yeah, we were. So like very, very early on in Fitz, it was just me. You know, like I like our female, like it's really interesting. Our attorney is a woman. Our music publisher, it's a family, but it's pretty much ran by, you know, the wife, Sharon Wixon. She's a beast. You know, she's just incredible. We have, you know, we had some incredible
Amazing.
women and still do on our team. And then just on tour, it was all men. Like it was literally like I was going nuts. Like the first like year, dirty socks or just like all the things, you know, it's like I get it. We're family, bro, but I'm not your wife. I'm not like your girlfriend. I'm not trying to pick up after y'all. Like there's too much testosterone in the room. It's starting to just get wild. And you know, I had a conversation. I was like, "Listen, I'm not trying to be the only female on tour. So whatever we got to do, if it's bringing in, you know, a production coordinator, if it, you know, whatever it was, I was like, we need more females on this team. So we started
Amazing.
hiring our monitor engineers were female first, and then we, you know, found, you know, production coordinators and all of this stuff, and you know, like slowly building. So like literally I was talking to my TM because we, you know, I was like, how are we running, because everybody's running on slim productions, you know, this year, and we got stuff on the board basically through like October, you know. 2021, which is going to be crazy to navigate, but we're all kind of running on slimmer production crews
Yeah.
because the entire industry recognizes that we all can't go out on the road at the same time. There's not enough resources. Like if you're thinking about renting a car, good luck with that because they sold all of their fleets. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah,
Like it's
getting a
like
tour bus, dude,
yeah,
it's real.
buses, bus
Yep,
companies that may
yep,
have gone out of business or, or now doing RVs instead
yep.
of like, so there's like a shortage. And then also we lost almost 30% of our workforce, unfortunately, and it's like some of our music venues and it's like, who's going to be around? Like no one's on the same page with the different states, even just in the vaccination programs, we're kind of all over like, yes, we are getting through it and whatever they want to kind of spotlight us in the concerts industry are safety first for our crews, for the artists that are coming out there, all of the staff members on a local level, and then it's like making sure our fans are safe,
Yeah.
and how the pandemic is real. Whether or not you want to believe in science, whether or not you think that you're invincible, people have died. We've lost hundreds of thousands of lives, to this pandemic. So I think to kind of like brush it off is like everybody's vaccinated. No, they're not. Especially if you're looking at people of color, there's a hesitancy to taking the vaccine and stuff. So like we're thinking about all of these things, like going on the road and getting our sea legs
Wow.
back, and
Totally.
there's just a lot. There's
What's
a lot
so cool though
involved.
about this, like
Yeah,
people, crews are having to really think deeply about how they want to go on the road. Sustainability is coming up a lot. How can we,
yeah,
it feels like with, the silver lining of sort of having to tear everything down and hit pause and start over is that we can be more mindful in how we rebuild, which
yeah,
is why what you're doing is so important right now in this moment. Like, okay, if we have to go and find crews and new tech people and like, how do we rebuild sustainably and,
yeah.
in diversity, it's actually, I think it's a hard and scary and exciting time, I think, for
Yeah.
really doing this the right way.
It's a long play, man. Like, do I
Yeah.
imagine that when I start up in 2022, I'm going to see a ton of diversity in the crews? Probably not. Not starting off, like it's going to be a buildup, but what we're really working towards, and everybody, and I say a we because there's a we that is happening, and a lot of folks that are super supportive, and even though I'm like, in the trenches and like calling everybody and all this stuff, there's a lot of people that are activating and really putting their best foot forward and figuring out how they can best start the process
Yeah.
slowly but surely with the intention of moving it up, come 2022,
Totally.
23.
Well,
As,
and what happens is the visual representation thing happens, right? So it's
yeah,
like you see yourself in the role of a crew member, maybe one
yeah,
person sees that as an audience member, sees himself, thinks that maybe, oh, this is a job I can do. I didn't see anybody else that looked like me before this, but now maybe that's a job I can do, and then slowly
yeah,
over time, I think that's hopefully where things, start to change. That's
yeah,
what I hope for
yeah,
even lineups, I'm obviously in the electronic music side of things, but just the
yeah.
diversity of lineups, let alone all the crews working for those people. It's like if
And I was
if
talking,
all the people you see on stage are white
yeah,
men DJing, then
yeah,
all of their crews are probably white men.
yeah, I was having a conversation with Aluna George about that, and
Wow.
and
Awesome.
talking to Tadia Taylor, who's an Invits producer, and she's kind of come in as like a director of partnerships and just like working with me on
So
identifying
cool.
folks that we can bring in on the festival level. When we were talking about that, she was like, yeah, it's really insane. Like it's you think about house music and the roots of house music, and none of those folks that started house music are getting gigs, and it's
I
insane.
know.
So to
It's
look at the roster of folks, that's a big part of our work too, right? Because we're looking at all of our live, and how can we hold our venues accountable, those bookers accountable,
the
for
whole ecosystem. Yeah, totally.
it
And
all.
they all feed into each other. So, where it's really cool that you're using your platform as an artist to, because I hope at the end of the day that if the artist really does raise their hand, something can change there. And I hope to, how can they support what you're doing? How can they be a part of the movement? What can we do?
Well, you can definitely go visit the website diversifythestage.com .org, excuse me, oh my gosh, .com,
And we'll throw
.org.
the links in the chat too.
Yeah, absolutely. You can go visit the website if you are a professional in the industry that is, you can be a staff member on the road, technical engineer, all of the things, and you want to engage with young people, you can join us as being either masterclass speakers or being mentors. You can also partner with our technical partner, Even Network, to train young people in different areas of stagehand and stagehand careers, that just entry level space. So audio, your automated, kind of stages and all these things. And you can engage with us and just click the get involved form link and let us know how you want to get involved. If you want to be a volunteer, if you are a student and you want to apply for the program when we start doing cohorts again, all of these things, you can check the website out on. If you are an artist, like, engage in the activations of talking about your experience on the road as it relates to diversity and inclusion, what you're not seeing, what you want to activate within your teams, talking to your tour managers, talking to your management, and letting them know that you have the requirement for all of your productions to look like the mosaic of individuals that make up our music community. And start from there. Resources are available. Anybody can reach out to us if you want resources as an artist. You can have your tour managers reach out to us. We have databases, we have grassroots partners, we have a way of you getting involved. Another thing that we're really working towards creating is an apprenticeship program that is a start to finish kind of program. So working with, artists that have the capacity to create roles and PA roles within their touring businesses that are sponsored. So you can sponsor a person that wants to learn the ropes around production management. And I'm really stating the roles of leadership, and because you become the folks that are hiring other people so you can pay it forward. So I'm looking at these roles where people can actually become leaders in the industry. They can identify, if you are an audio student, a sound student, be it production or whatever, and you want to learn more about live sound, teaming up with our audio suppliers and showing you how to use their consoles and all of the things. We have incredible partners in place. There's incredible education opportunities out there. So all you have to do is literally just visit the website. We'll send you to folks like Femme House, the scholarship programs that you guys are doing. It's super dope what you guys are doing and what you're focused on. Gender Amplified is another one that, we're all about kind of pushing it to the folks that are doing the work and that are part of the network and the community and the movement. So that's a big part of it. But yes, as an artist, absolutely 100% engaged. You don't even have to necessarily start with a game plan. You can assess the situation. How often do you tour? What is the size of your crew? What is the makeup of your crew? If you have vacancies and you recognize that you can do better, you're not hiring enough women, you're not hiring LGBTQIA plus, members, you're not, engaged with persons of disabilities, even on your production level. Like, if you can't do it on the technical end, but you can control what's happening in the venue and say, we want, access for folks that, are living with being deaf, or what I'm saying, all of these things.
So cool.
So it's really kind of engaging in the areas that are important to you, posting positive messaging, posting resources for mental health. We're all coming out of this with some sort of PTSD, all of us, even as fans. You going to a concert for the first time and navigating being around a ton of people, like, if you've
It's
really
shocking.
safe,
Yeah.
just really depending on where you live and how you've, kind of navigated this territory. If you've lost your job, if you're just getting back into the infrastructure of society and wanting to celebrate music for what it is, it's like posting these kinds of resources, and that's what we're activating. You become a partner of DTS, you get a partner package, you get the resources and all the things.
Thank you so much for your time. This was so helpful. Thank you for tangible resources. Thank you for doing the work you're doing, using your platform. It is so inspiring and incredible. And I look up to you so greatly. And I just hope that I can make a small amount of change in my career that you have done. Thank you for inspiring us truly. Thank you.
Thank you for having me. I'm
Thank you.
so I have so much gratitude for you. Thank you.
Same. Thank you. Thank you.
Awesome.
Everybody have a wonderful evening. Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.